it's way too cold to do this professionally today. I'm just like, not gonna do this. We're just gonna have some more fun here. More casual. Also, I needed a reason to write off this large, venti hot chocolate, and for that I needed to include it as a prop in the video. So here you go. It's officially a business expense now. Suck it, government. Speaking of government and money they take from you, I'll give you the price for the Escape as always at the end of the video, but I'm going to give that to you without any rebates or incentives deducted from that. It's going to be the full price, because depending on when you buy it and where you buy it, because even if you buy it in Ontario but in 2 years, incentives might look a little different, so I want you to get the full picture and then you can apply whatever incentives are available in your area to that. Just to make sense? Alright. Also, my other microphone equipment broke and replacement isn't here, so this is going to be a very casual review today, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's going to have fun here with the Escape. And with that being said, welcome to GCCars. My name's Eric, and this is 2021 Ford Escape Titanium Plug-in Hybrid. As always, we're going to start off talking about the exterior, then we're going to take a look at the interior, we're going to drive it, and then we sum it all up in the final thoughts and see if you should spend almost 50 grand Canadian on this, or if the competitors maybe offer a bit of a better value. Anyhow, exterior part. I think the Escape, I don't even think it's actually a fact. The Escape is in a bit of a weird spot in terms of styling. The thing is, nothing that came out after the Escape or before the Escape really looks like it. It kind of stands out in the Ford North America lineup because it's very different than everything else. It's not bad by any means. I think it looks decently elegant, although a bit awkward here and there, I think, because these headlights are pretty big, right? They illuminate very well. They do their job. It's just kind of like big googly eyes. Overall, I think it's fine. It's subjective, right? Most people, I think, like it. In the color we have here, Anamata blue. That's actually a blue that is so dark that even in direct sunlight, it looks almost black. Very interesting. But it's kind of cooler than just the black, right? So I like it. I dig it. Side profile, actually, I like a lot, especially this rear three-quarter here. That looks pretty nice. Good lines coming from the chrome trim here around, ending in the kink at the bottom, which kind of makes nice diagonal lines in the back. Yeah, that's good. Anyhow, lastly, the best part, in my opinion, of the Escape is the back. The Escape actually has a pretty nice tail. Because, similar to what I said in the Infinity, the slim headlights kind of make the stance look a lot wider and shrink it in terms of like tallness. So it looks more elegant, looks a little more sporty in its stance, and the Escape riding just looks nice. I just wish the plug-in hybrid brick badge would look a little more different. It's a little tacky. Very subjective what I'm saying here. You just gotta decide if you like. Oh, and of course we have our keypad here. So if you have the key on the inside, if you go swimming, for example, you can lock the car and then unlock the car with the keypad. That's a pretty cool feature, which not a lot of manufacturers have. Very rarely. It's outside of a Ford. But we talked about the exterior. I have a lot more to say about the interior. Let's do that. So I'll see you on the other side. And through the power of editing, I both took off my coat and we actually have a proper mic again, because the only issue is when I move. Anyhow, interior of the Escape, and I said I have a lot to say here. Let's start off with the negatives, and that is materials, because materials, quite frankly, in here are not up to par for what it is, for what it should be. Starting off with the door panel, this plastic is very thin. It is soft at the very least, so that's okay, but it's very thin, and it just feels like they put like the cheapest, thinnest piece of plastic in there, and it just kind of bends when you apply any force to it. It really does not feel nice. A lot of scratchy plastics. This one isn't too bad up top, like I said, but just everything is like full of not so nice materials. Unfortunately, we do have a couple of spots where we have leather steering wheel here, bit on the armrest and on the center console, and they are nice and plush. They're comfy, but materials throughout the cabin are significantly worse than you'll find in some other competitors, unfortunately. But there are positives to this, and this is layout and functionality. That's undoubtedly really good in this Escape. First of all, driving position is very comfy. At 5'7", I have plenty of room, but also plenty of support. Oftentimes it's kind of like I have a lot of room or I have a lot of support, but here I have a lot of freedom to move, my knee has space, and at the same time, I can rest my elbow on the center console. I can rest my elbow here at the door. Even up here, that's tall, that's wide enough, unlike in most cars where you can drive and have your arm up here if you need to relax a little. So that is very good. The steering wheel has a nice opening, so you have a good view of your gauges. It doesn't really impede with anything. It's good to grip. The buttons are easy to use. The whole layout of all the buttons, the HVAC controls, is very good. The infotainment, Sync 3 isn't the most updated one. Sync 4 is already out. We're going to take a look at that in a couple of weeks or months, depending on when I upload the video about the Mustang Mach-E. But Sync 3, you will notice, it doesn't have the most features, but it's actually a really good system. It is quick, it is responsive, it has all the features you need, and honestly, it still looks pretty good. It still looks pretty good. It looks very modern, albeit kind of simple. Some of the accents, I like the colors we have in here. Even though when the materials aren't nice by themselves, or most of them at least, I like that we have, this kind of like birch almost looking wood trim, which is, it's plastic, but it looks kind of nice. And it works with our seats because we have the same kind of tan color in the seats. And the seats, memory seats, we have heated steering wheel. There we go. We have heated steering wheel, heated seats. Are also very comfy. Also, of course, a very big sunroof up there. And then we have our GT500 shifter. I know this got into the GT500 afterwards and a lot of other Fords. But the dial shifter actually works really well. I like this a lot. It doesn't take up much space, and it is so easy to use. Do like 2 clicks and you're in reverse, 2 clicks to the right, drive again. That is super easy to use. And then lastly, what I want to talk about is our digital gauge cluster, which has plenty of different modes because we have all the different drive modes in here and has a lot of info in it. Sometimes can be a tiny bit laggy, especially if you, for example, open up the drive mode menu and instantly press a few. You'll notice that the bubbles in the middle don't always load right away, but it is decently responsive. The design is yet again simple but functional, and it is definitely nice stuff. It's better than just kind of classic gauges because it also has a lot of features for the EV stuff on here. But yeah, that's the front. We're going to take a look at the rear in a second. But TLDR, also phone charger. Oh shoot, I forgot. It's a little late now, but we can show logos because I'm not sponsored, so they don't get free advertisement. Functionally, very good, but in terms of materials, subpar. Let's take a look at the rear. Now in the rear here of the Escape, you will instantly notice that sitting behind myself, just in my driver position, I have plenty of space. For a compact SUV, this is actually pretty impressive. If you see my other videos where I compare for the front space, often I sit back a little further, so maybe take away like 2 or 3 inches here. But even then, I still have plenty of room for my knee, my head has a lot of room, and to the sides, I also have pretty good room everywhere. And with all the windows and the panoramic roof, it is actually pretty comfy because there's a lot of light coming in here. Materials, once again, are not good. Especially here, there's this little tiny egg, this tiny edge and corner, and if I kind of put my arm on here, just sometimes you get in, just kind of slam your arm on there, and it can actually hurt your elbow a little bit. It's not too bad, but it isn't comfy. Seats themselves, though, are comfy. Not a lot of support, so if you drive with somebody who drives a little more sporty, you will fly around in here a little bit. But of course, you can also just down here recline, and now we are comfy. It's actually pretty nice. A lot of space, and we have cup holders, as you would expect. We have USB-C. We have a regular USB, which is running my microphone equipment right now. And no. Once again, same as in the front. Practicality, good. Materials, subpar at best. Before we go driving, I just want to take a quick look at the trunk, and like I said, then we'll go driving. Hello. So, taking a look at the trunk, first of all, as you can see, I actually have a pretty decent amount of space for myself. As always, I'm the kind of the scale we use for this. Just like this. We have 34.4 cubic feet of space, and which is actually by itself already decent. But of course we can extend that. Two things we can do for that. First of all, unfortunately, we cannot lay the seats down from back here, which would be nice, but we do have a grocery bag here, a single one here on the left. That's always good. How can we extend the space? Pretty simple. First of all, we can slide the seats forward like this, or of course what we can also do is just lay them down. We can do it for both sides, but you get the idea, right? Wonderful. Let's put it back up. One-handed is always a little tricky, but we get that. And additionally, we do have our charging cable back here. Speaking of charging, let's go driving. That was a bad segue. Anyhow, we're gonna drive now. Okay, now on the road here in the 2021 Escape, and as always, we start off with a launch. First of all, I want to disable traction control settings, driver settings, and traction control. Unfortunately, no button for that, but that is fine. And then we want to go into sport mode, which automatically enables hybrid mode as well. And we'll see how quick she goes. Gonna brake torque her. Start the engine. Brake torque. There we go. 30, 40, 50. And now she pulls. Okay, and brake her down not too rapidly because I have equipment in the back. And bring her back into regular normal. Okay, so we have a naturally aspirated 2.5 liter inline 4 in addition to 2 electric motors, producing a total output of about 220 horsepower and roughly 150 pound-feet of torque, and that is sent through a CVT to our front wheel. No all-wheel drive, and I've been driving through some pretty bad conditions, and except for getting in and out of parking spots, it was honestly fine, even in Canadian post-blizzard conditions. Anyhow, speed itself is decent. It's of course not really fast, but that's not why you buy like an Escape hybrid. That is, I think it's adequate, and as long as you're in hybrid mode, which we are right now, it is okay. I do want to test all-electric launch though. Traction control is still disabled. We're a little tiny bit uphill, but we'll see. Of course, there's no brake torquing because, well, it's electric. So let's see. I'm just going to stop on the throttle. Oh, it automatically enabled the engine there. Okay, that's unfortunate. Last time it didn't do that. I wanted it to stay in EV mode. But well, okay. But even when you're driving fully electric and you're not flooring, you still have quite a bit of a range to be able to accelerate, unlike the XC90 we had. Different class, but still that was a plug-in hybrid we had. This one allows you more leeway to kind of act within the bounds of the electric motors. Speaking of that, we have a 14.4 kilowatt hour battery, which, according to the EPA, gives us about 37 miles, so roughly 60 kilometers of range of fully electric driving. Of course, normally we drive it in hybrid mode like we do now. Let me switch that back. So many modes always in these EVs. That's normal. So this is engine plus motors, which gives you kind of like the balanced approach, right, between fuel economy and range. And yeah, but you can drive up to 60 kilometers fully electric, which is actually quite a good number. I would say that allows me, for example, to get about half, 3/4 of my week with work and commuting before I even have to plug it in. And then you can plug it in at home or at a charging station. Both level 1 and level 2 chargers are available, of course. You cannot fast charge this. Level 2 takes about 3-4 hours to charge up to 100% battery, and level 1, which is just like your common household outlet, takes about 10 hours. But honestly, 10 hours, you probably have your car sitting for about 10 hours a day, so that if you have a garage, just plug it in and you don't have to buy like a level 2 charger, which saves you quite a bit of money in the end. And of course, what I did, because I live in an apartment for most of the time, because I live in an apartment that way, you can also charge it with your car, with your engine. So there is an EV later mode, which saves the battery. Right now we have 70% battery, so it'll save that for later. Or we have a charge mode, so the engine also acts as a generator on top and charges the battery. It takes about roughly as long as the level 2 charge is. So, but if you were to let it sit 2-3 hours maybe, you would be able to have a fully charged car. Of course, that's not the ideal solution. That's just kind of like the convenience feature, which allows people like me who don't have a house to charge the car wherever I am. Very convenient. But that is kind of like the EV stuff and the hybrid stuff out of the way, except for the fuel economy, which according to the EPA wasn't able to run like a test, and like in winter conditions it's not quite apples to apples, right? According to the EPA, about 105 mpge you can get out of this, and that equals combined city highway 2.29 liters per 100 kilometers, which is decent. Anyhow, that's out of the way. Let's talk about how it actually is to drive, right? Because actually, I like how this drives. The CVT, first of all, is very, very subtle in its CVT-ness, unless you really floor it like we just did. Even under strong accelerations, you don't really notice that it's a CVT. So it doesn't have really much of the droning that comes with CVTs normally. It does a good job. And the transition between the electric driving and the engine when it pops in is very well done. Just like the braking, because if I were to let off right now, you'd have regenerative braking, right? And if I press the gas pedal, the brake pedal up until maybe like 30-40%, we are also just using the motors to break down and recuperate energy instead of actually using our physical brakes. But the transition point, which I shall just do right now, is unnoticeable. The transition from recuperating to physical brakes is unnoticeable, and that's really important because sometimes in some other hybrids you really notice kind of like the crossover point, and then suddenly you have like a lot more braking power or you have a lot less braking power. And Ford really managed to make this drive a lot more comfortable than some other hybrids. So I'm so happy with how this drives, honestly. And EV mode is just, if you only drive with the engine, so if you have it in charge now or EV later mode, you do notice that the engine doesn't have a lot of power. The engine is kind of coarse sounding if it has to do a lot of work, and it just lacks the smoothness that you have when you're in hybrid or EV mode. Because in hybrid and EV mode, it is just I'm driving a lot of internal combustion engine motors. We got cars. We do have a lot more EVs coming in a couple of months, so stay tuned for that. Full on EVs, I mean. It's just the smoothness that an electric motor gives you is just unrivaled, and is very nice. Just like right now, the car is in fully electric mode. Decided to use that instead of the engine, and we're just kind of cruising along, very smooth acceleration. So it's a very pleasant ride, and honestly, it's very quiet in here. For a regular, I'll say, compact SUV, it's actually really quiet in here. I was surprised by that. There's not a lot of noise coming through. Really, the most noise you will hear in this is when you have the engine running, like the combustion engine. Then you will notice that a little bit, especially like I said in EV later or charge mode. Handling wise, I was able to do the handling test finally again because the roads dried off after like 2 weeks. It is actually decently capable, not that you will use it, but the steering is just numb. It is absolutely dead. You don't really know what the wheels are doing. You have, even under acceleration, you have torque steering there, so you kind of have to counteract that. So it's not very well balanced. It's not very well made to be driven in any other matter than efficient. So just kind of floor it here. There we go. But it pulls decently. So yeah, some others really do a better job of using electronic steering like this and make it feel a little more connected, a little more lively. I would much prefer this to have like a teeny tiny bit of feedback, because you don't feel anything. You drive a train tracks, you don't feel anything. You just notice that your car goes a little bit of a different direction. But other than that, really, the steering is just a little too dead, because there's a crossover point, like a sweet spot between numbness and, well, between feedback and comfort, let's say like that. And it's just too far, even for non-enthusiasts, too far in the direction of comfort, in my opinion. But let's talk a little bit about tech, because tech is surprisingly good in this. We have a lane centering assist in this, so if you enable adaptive cruise control, you have lane centering, so the car kind of steers itself. It's still, of course, not an autonomous system, so you will have to stay in control at all times, keep your hands on the steering wheel, and so on. But it actually does a really good job. It does a really, really good job. One of the better ones I've tested, and I've tested quite a few of those kind of systems, and it is good enough for me to use it when I'm driving on the highway and want to relax a little bit. There's some other systems like the Nissan system which does a decent job, but it's not good enough for me to kind of use it as a relaxing way, because I have to interfere too often, and then you have this little weird resistance. If you want to correct it, you have to like push over that in the Nissans. In this one, there's no resistance, so even if you need to correct it a little bit, it is smooth, just like you're driving yourself. And it does a very, very good job of staying in the lanes, even at higher speeds. So that is great. We have all the safety systems you'd like. We do have a backup camera. That's the only camera we have, which is moderate quality, I would say, but it does the job. And which I didn't speak about in the interior part, the Bang & Olufsen we have is actually pretty good. Sounds very, very good. I was surprised. It's not the best ones I've ever had, but for the price and for the kind of car we're in, it is definitely one of the better systems I've had. We also have a HUD, which is one of the old school HUDs, like a glass pane kind of coming up in front of the windshield, and that gets the HUD projected on it. So it's not the most high tech, but it's still very clear, a lot of information in there. And I like HUDs, just make it a lot easier to drive cars like this. The price is something we need to talk about, but we'll do that in the final thoughts. Let's go over there. Okay, final thoughts on the 2021 Ford Escape titanium plug-in hybrid. And this is a bit of a difficult one for me, because I have some criticisms, but there's also a lot to like. First of all, let's start off. What's to like here? Without a doubt, the Ford Escape is a very well executed plug-in hybrid. First of all, you have a lot of range with the battery that actually is useful. It's like some out there have like 23 kilometers of range. It's like, cool, what do I do with that? Like the 60 kilometers you can have. Winter right now, I get my a little over half of that, but that's winter for you. Like that's actually usable range. You can actually use that range, and the transition, it drives very well. The transitions from internal combustion engine to electric motor, vice versa, and from regenerative braking to electric braking is done very well. It is quiet inside. The sound system is good. The suspension is decent. It all adds up to a very compelling package in terms of how it drives, and then you have like driver assist systems which work very well. But at a price of $48,744 Canadian, US dollar price number here, it is very tough to accept the interior that Ford delivers in this Escape. It is just, even at $30,000, I had cars that had much nicer interiors than this. Now, like I said, this price is without any incentives or rebates or stuff like that. So you will highly likely, depending on where you are and when you watch this video, but at that point, wherever you are at what time, you'll probably still get incentives on this, and it will actually end up cheaper. But right now, don't take it like this. Don't get the titanium. Yes, there's plenty of nice features in there, which of course would be a little annoying to miss, but it's just not worth the money. Go for, if you want to have an Escape, which, like I said, in stealth, there's a lot of good here. Go for a lower trim level. Don't spec all the options. This is fully loaded. Of course, it ends up being expensive. That's a press car spec, right? They want to show you everything they got, so I can show you everything they got. But don't take the titanium. Don't spec all the options. Make a nice little spec of some things you need and some things you don't need. You can just let them out, leave them out, and you will have a much more reasonable price. If you do that, I think you have a pretty good car for yourself. Because, like I said, there's a lot to like. Anyhow, yeah, that concludes my review of the 2021 Ford Escape. We do upload videos every single week, from budget cars to, well, videos every single week, pardon me, from like budget cars to luxury cars, sports cars, trucks. We got literally everything. We got more EVs coming and more plug-in hybrids. We have the Mustang Mach-E GT scheduled very soon, and this for a little more than this one, just a couple thousand more. We have a full electric. We have the Honda Ioniq 5 also coming. So if you like EVs, make sure to stay tuned. And yeah, if you like the video, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell, because that supports me, gives you free videos, and I can make even more videos, and they will be more professional. Sorry, this was kind of like an exception here, with like literally holding my phone. I'm sorry for that, but the content should still be pretty fine. So I hope you learned. Anyhow, thanks so much for watching. I hope you liked it, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, and goodbye.